Another freeze warning is in effect for the 2025 class for Auburn football. We've got a brand new commitment and a flip, which is a common thread in this cycle. Let's get into it. Let's talk about all the quick facts that you need to know, and of course, what it means for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we cover the Auburn experience, Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. It's all fair game. Great way to say it is. If it's orange and blue, it's what we do and what we get into here today. What are we getting here to today on this live stream? A late night live stream. Late for some of you, to be honest. So if you're here live, much appreciated that you stuck it out with us. If you're watching the replay, welcome as well. We are getting into a reaction stream for a commitment for the Auburn football program, one that's been probably anticipated for quite some time, one that people have been wondering when it was going to happen, and you might have even gotten some hints that it was about to drop if you're following certain figures on social media. Who is that commit? Wide receiver, former Georgia Tech wide receiver commit, Sam Turner, has put himself into the 2025 class for Auburn football, flipping officially, making it official, and is now part of that class and what is shaping up to be one of the most impressive classes that Auburn has put together in quite some time. Obviously, a lot of different angles to talk about for this particular guy. We want to give you some information about him, where he's from, all that kind of stuff. And then certainly we want to get into what it means for Auburn, for him. All those different things are coming up here. Let us know that you're watching live or on the replay. A lot of you are already checking in and saying hello. We appreciate you doing that. And if you got any comments or thoughts about this particular commitment and what it means for the class, speculation about him, please do share it. We'd love for you to be able to, share some of your thoughts that you are going to be here. We already got dad jokes being brought in here as well, being a Georgia Tech connection. And obviously, if you're deep in Auburn and Georgia Tech stuff, you'll know what that's in reference to. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about him. Sam Turner, wide receiver commit for 2025, a former commitment for Georgia Tech. So yet another flip. Let's start right there. What's been one of these stories? There are several different angles that you could talk about this 2025 class, but the fact that it is yet another flip for Auburn, for Hugh Freeze, for his staff, Marcus Davis as well continues to, did well last cycle with wide receivers, doing well this time. Got two in the class, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the flips are what's crazy. The last two at least were Derek Smith. Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Not Derek Smith. We were getting into obviously Deuce Knight. This one here, you flip somebody from Michigan, from maybe from Ohio State, Alabama, from Georgia, from Florida State in the past. So the story of these recruiting for Hugh Freeze is going and finding who everybody else has and going and stealing from them pretty much, or telling them to come on back if they had interest in, being part of the class at some point down the line. So another flip for the Tigers. A little bit of information about Sam. And again, this is just kind of a conglomeration of all the different places you can go look for all of this, but want you to have it. He's listed somewhere between 6'1" and 6'3". I mean, it varies from two different sites that I'm referencing right now. So we'll call him 6'2" just to be on the safe side. So approximately 6'2" and 100 and let's see where they have him listed at, just to be on the safe, 190 to 195 pounds. So somewhere in that range. So a pretty decent size wide receiver. We've got ones that are a little bit taller, like your Cam Coleman's and stuff like that. But I think that's a pretty nice measurable when you think about someone that kind of just fits nicely at your prototypical wide receiver. Maybe not your smaller, speedy guy, maybe not your lengthy, go up and get it type of guy, but just a solid wide receiver. And obviously a power program in Georgia Tech. Now you may say Georgia Tech's not that big of a power program right now, but they're still a power 5, power 4, whatever program. Being able to steal them from them is a big thing. It comes from Southwest DeKalb High School, which is going to be in the Atlanta-ish region or surrounding areas. His hometown is listed as Atlanta, Georgia on these sites as well, or Decatur, Georgia. I actually used to live in Decatur for a little bit of time, for a small amount of time. So I'm very familiar with that area. In fact, I probably drove by his high school, at least in the recent times. So Southwest DeKalb High School, playing wide receiver. Depending on where you go, look at for stars and things like that. you are going to find a varying thing there, but pretty much it's a 3-star prospect. As always, folks, I give you that information just so you can have it. But remember, it does not matter how many stars you come in with. It matters how many stars you leave with, but just so that you have the information for yourself to do with as you will. We talked about Marcus Davis. Obviously, he made a name for himself with that wide receiver class that he helped bring in. And obviously, not the most prolific in terms of numbers wide receivers, at least yet in this class. It's a very full class at this point. But this one is going to be another one of those, hopefully, that he goes and snags that maybe a lot of people aren't like rushing out to get. But obviously, Georgia Tech saw something in him. Obviously, Auburn now saw something. And well, in fact, if you go back and kind of track the records that people have had of his commitments and or his at least decision making process, you'll see that he committed to Georgia Tech back in the summer. Came to Big Cat weekend. That's when Auburn really ramped the things up. They thought he might actually flip over then. Took his time. Thought he might have a decision about the two of them before his senior year started. You got to wonder. Let's just kind of talk about it from this angle. You have to wonder, is this a result of the Deuce Knight commitment? I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not a possibility because it is a wide receiver, and you look over there as a wide receiver, like, oh, look at that's a quarterback that I'm going to be playing with. It makes you wonder, right? The timing does seem very convenient, and it would be stupid to ignore that may have played a part in all of this. So that was one of the big things after the Deuce Knight commitment, which we've done a video about as well. If you want to go watch that, we talked about who else might be interested in committing to the Tigers because of Deuce Knight. Maybe Sam, at least that helped his decision-making process to make the flip official. Okay, let's talk about what it means for the team. That's a little bit of the information that you need about him. Let's talk about what it means for him, for the team, for recruiting class. Let's start there with the recruiting class. As of the time, which is a late one tonight, of his commitment and flip from Georgia Tech, that makes it 27 total commits in this class. Now, if you watched our last update on this class, you'll know that we had 25. That's because I forget how you pronounce his name. Kale is how I'm going to say it. Ellis, what do you call it? Got reevaluated or got bumped up to this class. There's a term for it I'm blanking right now. So that made him the 26th one in the class. So now this makes our newest commit, Sam Turner, number 27. It is technically the number 2 wide receiver in the class, with the first one being Derek Smith. I think at one point he was listed as an athlete, but I think most assumed he was going to be a wide receiver, and that's what most places have him listed at. Also makes him, if I did my math correctly, the 7th total commit in this class from the state of Georgia. We always talk about in recruiting battles and pipelines how important it is to take care of your home base, Alabama, even your backyard within Alabama and your surrounding areas, but to take care of what is of high importance to Auburn football, and that is the state of Georgia. Now, you say only 7 out of the 27. Is that enough? But if you look at what they've been doing with the state of Georgia state of Alabama recruiting this year, you kind of go, interesting. Yeah, so obviously Alabama, Georgia, Florida usually is that number 3 spot, taking care of the ones that are the most important to you overall in this class. So 27 overall, 2nd wide receiver, 7th from the state of Georgia. That gives you a breakdown. In terms of rankings and stuff like that, it doesn't really change a lot for the Tigers. They're still in the top 5 in most of the many, if not most, of the rankings out there for teams and things like that, if you're interested in those types of conversations. All right, what does this mean for him in terms of like coming in? What can we speculate about what the makeup of the football team is going to look like when he arrives? Obviously, this is a lot of speculation here. So keep that in mind when we're talking about these things. We know that there are 2 commitments in this class. So what that should tell you is that they're going to be filling the spots of the people that will likely be gone. So if you look at it right now, basically off of who is currently playing at wide receiver for Auburn, you'll notice that there are going to be 3, actually, let me make sure I'm doing my math correctly. 3, yes, guys that will not have any more eligibility after this year, barring some weird thing that I'm not aware of. Lambert Smith, Robert Lewis, and Sam Jackson V. All of those guys are going to be gone this year because they are senior transfers. Sure, one of them is going to prove me wrong somehow, but all of those guys should be gone by the end of this, which means that you've got 3 spots open, which means that you could technically fill 3 of those spots. 2 of them have been filled. Does that mean 1 more is coming into the fold? Maybe. I think a lot of you have a certain name out there that you're interested in bringing into the fold. At least from the numbers game, that is certainly an option that's still on the table. But you also got to wonder, with so much young talent, even with those 3 names that we're losing, you've still got Perry Thompson, you've still got Malcolm Stillman, Bryce Kane, you have got Cam Coleman, and many other. Camden Brown will still have eligibility. Caleb Burton will still have eligibility. So there is still a lot of wide receivers that are going to be here at Auburn, and you're still bringing in 2 more. So you got to wonder, even though that 1 spot's available, will that be another one? So what does this mean for him in terms of playing time? I would say that the opportunities are going to be on the lower side, just given he's got to compete with the Freeze 4 first. But you never know. Hugh Freeze likes to give young guys, he's shown it this year, the opportunity to compete, the opportunity to show that they deserve to be out there. And if they do that, such as like a Malcolm Simmons, they will find the time. They will find a way to work them into the system. So never rule it out, but I would say that the battle for finding playing time with the wide receiver group we currently have is going to be tough because he's not the only one that they're bringing in anyway. So I don't think that I would say just by numbers game, we're not done yet, but you just never know when this all shakes out of there. Okay, so we talked about quick facts. We have talked about what it means for the recruiting class, where they're from, the overall depth chart, how things may or may not shake out, playing time for him. Are we done yet type of storylines. If there's anything else about this particular commitment, Sam Turner, that you would like to bring up, please do so in the chat right now, especially if you're watching live. You can obviously post comments on the replay if you're watching that. A couple of reminders that we want to give for you before we take any final comments or any other storylines. Reminders of when we're going to be live next, because you don't want to miss that. Obviously, things like this pop up all the time, but don't miss the Auburn Experience, episode 97 live. Excuse me. Yes, yeah, that is correct, because I forgot we have a bye week this week. Episode 97 live at 9 Eastern time. Join us where we'll talk about plenty of things. Certainly, we will talk about this commitment again. We are not done talking about that one yet. We'd love to see you here, and make sure you're subscribed, following wherever you can find us, podcast, social media, everything. Okay. Any final notes on this? WT says, I think this guy is going to be with a J, Jim for Auburn receiving. Well, Hugh's pedigree is that he is able to find guys and develop them at the wide receiver position. In fact, some of the articles, if you'll read them, that was one of the reasons that helped make the decision for Sam, is talking about guys like Elijah Moore, Van Jefferson, Laquan Treadwell, and there's one more I'm blanking on right now, that DK Metcalf. And then there's a good track record there. I don't know that Hugh's ever going to have a hard time getting wide receivers interested and or committed, flipped, whatever, because that just seems to be nice in his pedigree for doing that. A lot of people are talking about some of the commits that we have here, that Georgia is so crucial, and a nice one to grab out of the state of Georgia and snag one from an old rival in Georgia Tech. Not much of a rivalry these days, but my goodness, it is always nice to take one from them and talk about that. Still blows me away that recruiting in Auburn is going as well with our current record. Just goes to show you that all those that you are afraid about losing will hurt things. Not necessarily the case these days, but you never know. Winning certainly helps, but it doesn't mean that you're out of it if your record doesn't reflect maybe how good your trajectory is heading in the right direction. Sam's got it. We all know it. And of course, we wrecked Tech by getting this one from Georgia Tech. I appreciate you guys tuning in for a late night stream and a little short one, as we always do for these reaction live streams. But thank you so much for tuning in live or on the replay. And we appreciate you being here. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.